Have you ever tried to run with a stone in your shoe? It slows you down, it hurts with every step, and no matter how fast you try to go, that little weight reminds you it's still there. That's how pain works. It stays until you face it. We live in a world where everyone tells you to be strong, to smile, to pretend the hurt never happened. But healing doesn't come from pretending. Healing comes from facing the ache, from daring to feel it all the way through. Tonight, I want you to stay with me, because what I will share is not just about surviving heartbreak, betrayal, disappointment, or loss. It's about finally learning how to move on without dragging the ghosts of yesterday into your tomorrow. If you've ever wondered why the past still whispers in your ear at night, or why you still carry the weight of what broke you, then stay with me. Because in the next few moments, we are going to walk the path of pain, healing, and release together. And by the end, you will know the power of letting it hurt, letting it heal, and letting it go. We are taught from a young age to be strong, to hold it together, to smile through the storm, and to never let the world see us break. Somewhere along the way, many of us began to believe that tears were a sign of failure, that grief meant we were weak, and that if we admitted we were hurting, we would somehow lose the respect of others. But the truth is far more profound. To let yourself hurt is not weakness. It is the most courageous form of honesty, because pain does not disappear when you silence it. Pain does not dissolve when you deny it. Pain waits, and it waits for you to face it. To let it hurt means you are choosing truth over performance. It means you are brave enough to stop pretending that the cut is not bleeding. You are strong enough to say, I am not okay, but I am willing to feel this until I am. That is not weakness. That is strength wrapped in vulnerability. Because anyone can wear a mask and keep walking, but it takes the deepest courage to stand still, to allow the ache to rise, and to admit that it has touched you. So many people carry silent pain for years because they believe acknowledging it makes them less. They swallow tears, they laugh when they want to cry, they push through when their soul is begging for rest. And in doing so, they create a prison for themselves. The truth is, what you do not face will always find a way to resurface. You can bury it beneath distractions, you can cover it with busyness, you can silence it with noise, but it will come back. It will return in the middle of the night when the world is quiet. It will echo in your chest when you are alone. It will remind you that healing never happens through denial. Healing only begins through honesty. When you let it hurt, you are saying to yourself, my feelings are valid, my tears are sacred, my brokenness deserves compassion, not rejection. And in that moment, you create a space for transformation, because the heart cannot heal what the mind refuses to acknowledge. Think of it this way: if you break a bone and pretend it's fine, you will keep walking on it, and the damage will grow worse. But if you admit the break, if you stop and give it the care it deserves, healing begins. The soul is no different. Hurt demands acknowledgement before it can release its grip. Somewhere along the way, society confused numbness with strength, but numbness is not strength, it is delay. It is the art of carrying wounds so quietly that you forget you are bleeding until one day you collapse from the weight of it all. True strength is not pretending you are untouched. True strength is standing in the middle of the storm and admitting, yes, I am hurting, but I will allow myself to feel so that I may allow myself to heal. There is a sacredness in tears that few recognize. They are not weakness spilling from your eyes. They are your body's way of cleansing the heaviness. They are the voice of your soul when your words are not enough. They are the evidence that you are human, that you have loved, that you have cared deeply enough to be moved. To cry is not to break, it is to release. To cry is to tell the truth that silence cannot hold forever. When you let it hurt, you are teaching yourself honesty in its purest form, because honesty is not only about the words we speak to others, It is also about the truth we allow ourselves to feel. And sometimes the greatest dishonesty we live in is the one we practice with ourselves. The lie that we are fine when we are not. The lie that the wound is healed when it still aches. The lie that moving forward means pretending nothing happened. But healing is never found in lies. Healing is found in the bravery of saying, "This hurts me, and that is okay." There is a beauty in allowing pain to pass through you instead of letting it rot within you. The beauty is that once you allow yourself to feel it fully, it loses its power to control you. The grief you finally acknowledge becomes a teacher. The heartbreak you finally face becomes wisdom. The disappointment you finally admit becomes a stepping stone toward clarity. Pain does not come to destroy you, it comes to shape you, but only if you allow yourself to feel it. Imagine a seed buried in the ground. If you dig it up before it breaks open, it will never grow. The pain you feel is like that breaking, uncomfortable, raw, sometimes unbearable. But it is also the very process that allows something new to grow inside you. Denying the hurt stops the process of growth. Allowing the hurt completes it. There is also a deeper truth. When you let it hurt, you give permission to others to be human too. You remind the world that strength does not mean silence, that courage does not mean hardness, that being unshaken is not the measure of worth. Your honesty becomes a mirror for others. It gives them permission to lay down their masks. It allows them to exhale the truth they've been holding in. In your courage to feel, others find courage too. And isn't that the most powerful thing? That your honesty with your pain could help heal someone else's silence. That your tears could water someone else's courage. That your refusal to pretend could set someone else free from pretending too. So let it hurt. Let the tears fall if they must. Let the ache rise if it will. Do not run from it. Do not silence it. Do not be ashamed of it. Because in the end, you are not defined by the pain you feel. You are defined by the courage it takes to feel it. And if you can carry that kind of honesty in your heart, then you have already proven that you are stronger than the pain itself. Every wound carries a voice. A quiet whisper, a hidden truth that too many of us are afraid to listen to. We often rush to cover our wounds, to pretend they don't exist, to bury them under layers of strength and smiles. But a wound, no matter how small or deep, does not arrive without meaning. It is not an accident on the soul, it is a message, and within that message lies truth. The pain you carry is not empty. It is trying to tell you something. When someone breaks your trust, the wound left behind carries the truth about loyalty and boundaries. When love slips away, the hurt left in its place carries the truth about self-worth and resilience. When life takes away what you thought you could never live without, the ache it leaves speaks a truth about impermanence and courage. Every wound is both a scar and a lesson, both a reminder and a teacher. And the tragedy is not that we are hurt, but that so often we miss the wisdom the wound was meant to give. Think of the times you have been broken, perhaps by betrayal, perhaps by loss, perhaps by failure. At first, all you could see was the sharpness of the pain, but when the sting began to fade, when the fog began to lift, you realized that hidden inside that suffering was clarity. That betrayal taught you where trust must not be invested. That heartbreak showed you the places where love must be nurtured with care. That failure revealed the strength you never knew you had. The wound, in all its sting, had a truth folded inside it. Too often we are quick to curse the wound, to hate it, to wish it away. But what if instead we asked it, "What are you here to show me?" Because wounds are not punishment. They are revelations. They strip away illusions and force us to see what we would rather ignore. The truth they reveal is rarely comfortable, but it is always necessary. There is no growth without discomfort, no wisdom without pain. The child learns not to touch fire because of the burn. The heart learns not to cling to what destroys it because of the breaking. The spirit learns not to betray itself because of the cost of betrayal from others. Each wound is an awakening, a teacher dressed in the clothes of suffering. Some wounds speak of endurance. They remind you of how much you can carry and still rise. They are proof that you walked through fire and emerged, maybe with scars, but with a story that says, I survived. Other wounds speak of change. They show you the places where you cannot stay, the paths you cannot keep walking, the people you cannot keep holding on to. They push you to step forward when your comfort zone has become your prison. And then there are the wounds that speak of love. The ache of losing someone reminds you of how deeply you were able to feel. The pain of missing someone reminds you that your heart was wide enough to welcome them in. Even in loss, the wound proves that you are capable of loving beyond limits. But here is the truth. Wounds that are ignored will speak louder. If you refuse to listen, they repeat themselves in cycles. That broken relationship you didn't learn from will show up again in another form. That betrayal you denied will reappear in a different face. That lesson you silenced will return until you are willing to hear its truth. Life has a way of repeating the class until the student learns. The wound will not stop speaking until you are willing to listen. And listening to your wounds does not mean glorifying pain. It means recognizing that within every sting, there is a seed of wisdom waiting to bloom. It means allowing yourself to ask, what did this teach me? What truth does this hold about me, about others, about the way I choose to live? That question turns pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom, scars into symbols of survival. Every scar you carry on your body or soul is not just a mark of where you were hurt, it is a reminder of where you grew. That scar says, here I was broken, but here also I was rebuilt. That scar says, here I lost, but here also I learned. That scar says, here I bled, but here also I began again. Each wound, no matter how devastating, leaves behind something you can carry into the next chapter, a truth that could not have been learned any other way. The truth of a wound may be painful, but it is also liberating, because once you know the truth, you are free to live differently. You are free to walk with wiser steps, to love with clearer eyes, to trust with deeper discernment. The wound may hurt for a season, but the truth it leaves behind can carry you for a lifetime. And so, the challenge is not whether you will be wounded, because life guarantees that you will. The challenge is whether you will let your wounds silence you or teach you, whether you will carry the pain as a chain or as a key, whether you will resent the breaking or embrace the truth that was hidden inside it. When you look back on the hardest chapters of your life, you may find that those wounds became the very foundation of your wisdom. They became the chapters that gave your story depth. They became the reasons why you are softer in some places, stronger in others, wiser in all. And without those wounds, you would not be the same person standing here today. So the next time life cuts you open, the next time your heart aches with the kind of pain you cannot put into words, pause. Instead of rushing to hide it, ask yourself what truth is trying to come alive within you. The wound is not the end of your story. It is a messenger. It is a teacher. And its truth, though hard to face, may be the very truth that finally sets you free. We live in a world that glorifies speed. Everything must be fast. Fast food, fast answers, fast solutions, fast success. And because of this, we have begun to believe that even the heart should heal quickly, that broken spirits should mend overnight, that grief should vanish on demand. But the truth is, healing is not instant. Healing is not a button you press or a switch you flip. Healing is sacred work, and sacred work takes time. When you are wounded, whether in body, mind, or soul, there is a process that must unfold. Just as a seed cannot bloom in a single day, neither can your heart. To demand that your wounds heal instantly is to deny them the space they require. The cut needs air. The spirit needs stillness. The heart needs gentleness. Healing is not rushed, it is honored. And to honor it, you must be patient with yourself. There are people who will tell you to move on quickly, to stop crying, to forget it happened. But healing does not work that way. You cannot bury the pain alive and expect it to stay silent. You cannot close your eyes and pretend the wound is gone when it still throbs beneath the surface. Healing is not denial. Healing is attention. Healing is choosing to sit with your brokenness and breathe through it until the weight begins to lift. Think of how the body heals from a broken bone. You do not wake up the next day ready to run. There is rest. There is care. There is time. Sometimes there is pain before the progress. The bone aches before it strengthens. The same is true of the soul. Healing does not mean the pain disappears instantly. It means the pain begins to teach you, begins to shape you, begins to transform you. Healing is a journey, not a race. There is something sacred about this slow unfolding, because in the waiting, in the stillness, in the days when you wonder if anything is changing at all, something profound is taking place beneath the surface. Just as roots grow deep into the soil long before the flower shows its face, your spirit grows deeper in the unseen places long before your smile returns to its full light. The sacred work of healing is invisible to others, but it is powerful within you. The impatience we feel is often born from comparison. We look at others and wonder how they healed so quickly, how they smiled again so soon, how they managed to keep going. But you are not them. Their journey is not your journey. Their pace is not your pace. Healing is not about meeting a deadline. It is about respecting the rhythm of your own heart. The sacred work of healing cannot be measured in days or months. It is measured in the softening of your spirit, in the moments when you realize the memory no longer stings as deeply, in the breath you can finally take without heaviness pressing on your chest. Some people think healing means forgetting, but it does not. Healing does not erase the past. It simply changes the way the past lives inside you. At first, the wound screams every time you touch it, but with time, it becomes a scar. And that scar, while it never disappears, no longer causes pain. It tells a story. The sacred work of healing transforms wounds into wisdom, scars into strength, brokenness into beauty. But you must allow the time, the patience, the tenderness for that transformation to unfold. There is holiness in tending to yourself with care. Too often we treat our own pain as an inconvenience, something to be rushed through so we can get back to being productive, so we can get back to showing the world a strong face. But what if you saw your healing as sacred? What if you treated your broken heart the way you would treat a fragile child, with patience, with compassion, with gentleness? You would not tell a child to stop crying. You would not demand that a child run before they could stand. You would hold them, you would comfort them, you would give them space to grow strong again. You deserve the same tenderness. Healing also requires acceptance. Acceptance that it will not happen all at once, that some days you will feel lighter and some days you will feel heavy again. It is not a straight line. Healing spirals. It moves forward, then circles back, then forward again. And that does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. It means you are walking the sacred path of recovery, a path that winds and bends but always leads forward if you keep walking. There is also a truth we cannot avoid. Healing requires courage. Because to heal, you must revisit the wound. You must touch the places that ache. You must allow yourself to feel what you worked so hard to bury. That is not weakness. That is bravery of the highest kind. Because it is easier to stay numb, easier to stay busy, easier to pretend. But to heal, you must face the wound and allow it to breathe. That is why healing is sacred work, because it is not just about recovery, it is about transformation. And in the end, healing gives you more than relief from pain. It gives you wisdom, resilience, compassion. It gives you the ability to look into the eyes of someone else's suffering and say, I understand. I've been there too. Healing turns you into a vessel of empathy, a carrier of hope. Your healed wounds become bridges for others who are still bleeding. They become proof that the sacred work is worth it. So if you are in the middle of your healing, do not rush. Do not measure your progress by someone else's timeline. Do not demand that your heart be whole before it is ready. Let the sacred work unfold as it must. Trust the process. Trust the patience. Trust that the slow work is still work. And one day, perhaps when you least expect it, you will realize the wound that once held you captive has become the very place where your strength was born. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood acts of the human spirit. We are taught to believe that forgiving someone means excusing what they did, letting them off the hook, erasing the wrong, or welcoming them back into our lives as though the wound never happened. And because of this misunderstanding, many of us resist forgiveness, believing that holding on to the anger protects us, that keeping the pain alive somehow ensures justice. But forgiveness was never meant to be a gift you give to them. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. When someone hurts you deeply, the wound they leave is not just in the past. It lingers. You carry it. You replay it. You rehearse it. Sometimes you wake up with it on your chest, heavy as a stone. And in holding on to it, you think you are punishing them, but in reality, you are only punishing yourself. They may not even be aware of the prison you are in. They may not care. They may not even remember, but you remember. And every time you hold on to that bitterness, you are the one drinking the poison. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks that prison. To forgive does not mean you approve. It does not mean you forget. It does not mean you invite them back into your trust. Forgiveness means you release the power that hurt has over your life. It means you choose not to let their actions dictate the peace of your present. It means you decide that your freedom is more important than your grudge. Some will say, but they don't deserve forgiveness. And maybe they don't. Maybe what they did was cruel, unfair, or devastating. Maybe they never apologized, never took responsibility, never showed remorse. But here is the truth. Your healing cannot depend on their apology. Your peace cannot wait for their remorse. If you tie your freedom to their change, you may wait forever. Forgiveness is not about what they deserve, it is about what you deserve. And you deserve peace. Carrying unforgiveness is like carrying a wound that never closes. You press on it every day, and every day it bleeds again. But when you forgive, you allow the wound to close. You allow your heart to finally rest. Forgiveness does not erase the scar, but it stops the bleeding. It allows you to move forward without dragging the pain of yesterday into tomorrow. And forgiveness is not a one-time act. Sometimes it is a daily choice. Some wounds are so deep that you must forgive again and again until the grip loosens. And that's okay. Forgiveness is not a moment, it is a process. Each time you choose it, you are choosing freedom. Each time you let go, you are lightening the load. Forgiveness is also about reclaiming your power. When you refuse to forgive, you remain tied to the person who hurt you. They occupy your mind, your emotions, your energy, but when you forgive, you sever that tie. You say, you may have hurt me once, but I will not give you the power to keep hurting me every day. Forgiveness takes back what was stolen, your peace, your joy, your strength. And forgiveness is not weakness. Many confuse it with surrender, but it is the opposite. It is strength of the highest order. It takes courage to face your pain and release it. Anyone can stay bitter. Anyone can hold a grudge. Anyone can nurse anger. but it takes bravery to rise above it. Forgiveness is not for the faint of heart. Forgiveness is for the strong. There is a softness that forgiveness brings. When you release the anger, your heart expands again. You make room for love, for laughter, for hope. Bitterness shrinks your soul. Forgiveness opens it. Bitterness builds walls. Forgiveness builds bridges. Bitterness chains you to the past. Forgiveness frees you for the future. And if you truly desire a life of peace, forgiveness is the doorway you must walk through. This does not mean you reconcile with every person who hurt you. Forgiveness does not require relationship. Forgiveness does not demand closeness. You can forgive and still choose distance. You can forgive and still say no to letting someone back into your life. Forgiveness is not about proximity. It is about release. It is about removing the weight from your shoulders so you can stand tall again. Forgiveness also teaches compassion. It reminds us that we are all flawed, that we have all hurt someone, knowingly or unknowingly. It does not excuse wrong behavior, but it expands our vision. It helps us see that broken people break others, that wounded hearts wound others. And while that does not make their actions acceptable, it helps us release the grip of hatred. Forgiveness is not saying what you did is okay. Forgiveness is saying what you did will not destroy who I am becoming. When you refuse forgiveness, you tie yourself to the story of the wound. You let that chapter define your book. But when you forgive, you turn the page. You step into new sentences, new paragraphs, new beginnings. Forgiveness is not about rewriting the past. It is about refusing to let the past write your future. There is freedom waiting for you on the other side of forgiveness, a lightness you cannot imagine until you lay the weight down, a peace that fills the spaces where anger once lived, a joy that surprises you after so many years of carrying pain. Forgiveness clears the soil so that something new can grow. It opens the windows of the heart to let in air and light. It prepares you to love again, to trust again, to live again. So do not wait for them to say sorry. Do not wait for them to change. Do not wait for the world to make sense of the wrong. Forgive because your heart deserves peace. Forgive because your soul deserves rest. Forgive because your future deserves freedom. In the end, forgiveness is not for them. It was never for them. It is and always will be for you. There comes a time in every life when you must decide whether you will keep carrying what is breaking you or whether you will release it and walk free. The truth is, holding on often feels safer. It feels like control. It feels like proof that what happened mattered, that the person mattered, that the pain was real. But in reality, holding on is not strength. Holding on is a weight, and that weight is heavier than the freedom of letting go. We clutch old memories because we believe they keep us connected. We replay conversations because we think if we turn them over enough, we will finally understand. We grip anger because we think it protects us from being hurt again. But what we do not realize is that every memory we refuse to release, every grudge we keep alive, every regret we refuse to bury adds weight to our spirit. And the longer we carry it, the slower we move, the smaller we become, the dimmer our light shines. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go does not mean the story vanishes. Letting go simply means choosing to stop carrying what was never meant to come with you into the next chapter. Think of it like a traveler climbing a mountain. At the bottom, they pack their bag full of everything: clothes, tools, supplies, keepsakes. But as they climb higher, the air thins, the path steepens, and suddenly the bag that once seemed manageable becomes unbearable. At some point, they must stop and empty the weight, not because those items were worthless, but because they cannot reach the peak while dragging them all. That is what life asks of you. You cannot rise if you refuse to release. We hold on because we are afraid. Afraid that if we let go, it will mean it never mattered. Afraid that if we stop replaying the hurt, we will be vulnerable again. Afraid that if we release the memory, we will lose the last piece of someone we once loved. But none of that is true. What mattered will always matter. What you felt was real. What you experienced shaped you. Letting go does not erase it. It transforms it. It takes it from being an anchor that drags you under to a stepping stone that pushes you forward. There is also a hidden cost to holding on. The more you cling to what is gone, the less room you have to receive what is waiting. You cannot hold yesterday in one hand and tomorrow in the other. Your hands must be free to welcome new blessings, new people, new opportunities, new joy. Holding on clutters the soul. Letting go clears the space. Sometimes, holding on is not about people, but about identities we once had, dreams we once believed in, versions of ourselves we no longer are. We cling to who we thought we would be, to the life we imagined, to the path we thought was ours. And yet life has a way of redirecting us. It has a way of breaking the molds we made for ourselves. Holding on to those old versions of you only keeps you stuck in a place you have already outgrown. Letting go allows you to meet yourself again, to discover the newness waiting within you. It is not always easy. In fact, letting go can be some of the hardest work you will ever do, because the human heart longs for attachment, for certainty, for connection. And to release what you loved or what you thought you needed feels like loss. But here is the truth. The real loss is not in letting go. The real loss is in holding on to what is already gone. To cling to something that no longer exists is to keep yourself trapped in yesterday while life is unfolding today. Think about the moments when you finally did let go. The relationship you thought you could never live without. The anger you swore you would never forgive, the dream you thought was the only path. When you finally loosened your grip, what happened? You breathed, you felt lighter, you discovered new possibilities, new people, new strength you didn't know you had. Letting go is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a freer one. There is also a spiritual truth here. Life is not about clinging, it is about flowing. Rivers do not hold on to their water, they let it pass, and in doing so, they remain alive. Trees do not cling to their leaves when the season changes, they let them fall, and in doing so, they prepare for new growth. The universe itself shows us again and again that release is not death, release is renewal. To let go is to align yourself with the rhythm of life itself. And the irony is, what you fear losing by letting go is often the very thing that will stay with you once you release it. Because when you stop holding on in desperation, the truth of what mattered settles into your soul naturally. The lessons remain, the love remains, the wisdom remains. The hurt may even soften into gratitude. What you thought you were losing forever becomes something you carry in a gentler way, not as a weight, but as a whisper, as a guiding light. We must stop confusing holding on with loyalty. You do not prove love by refusing to move forward. You do not honor the past by sacrificing your future. True loyalty to yourself is knowing when to release. True love for yourself is trusting that life has more in store. True courage is putting down the stone and walking freely again. When you let go, you are not betraying the past. You are honoring your future. You are saying, I am more than this pain, more than this memory, more than this weight. You are reclaiming your wings. And yes, it will feel strange at first. The emptiness will feel uncomfortable. The silence will feel foreign. But soon that emptiness becomes space for new life. That silence becomes peace. That release becomes freedom. Holding on will always be heavier than letting go. The weight may feel familiar, but familiarity is not freedom. The burden may feel like identity, but identity is not meant to be pain. And so the question you must ask yourself is simple. Do I want to keep carrying what hurts me, or am I ready to walk lighter, freer, braver into what is waiting for me? Because life will not force you to release. It will wait for you to choose. And when you finally do, you will wonder why you carried so much for so long. One of the greatest fears people carry when it comes to moving on is the fear of forgetting. We hold on tightly to our memories, to our pain, to our past, because deep down we think if we release them, it will mean they never mattered. We think if we stop grieving, if we stop replaying, if we stop aching, then we will lose the last piece of what we loved or what we went through. But moving on was never about forgetting. Moving on is about choosing peace. You do not erase the story by moving forward. You do not dishonor the love by living again. You do not betray the past by smiling once more. What happened is part of you. It is stitched into your being. It has shaped the way you see, the way you feel, the way you love. Nothing can take that away. Moving on does not mean you forget. It means you choose to carry it differently. It means you choose to no longer let the pain of it weigh you down. Think of your memories like stones. When the wound is fresh, each stone feels sharp, jagged, impossible to hold. You bleed every time you touch it. But as time passes, as healing does its work, the stones smooth out. They do not vanish. They simply lose their edge. Moving on is the moment you realize you can hold those stones without bleeding anymore. You can look at the memory, the love, the loss, the lesson, and instead of being pierced by it, you can place it gently in your pocket and walk on. It becomes part of you, but it does not wound you anymore. Many resist moving on because they think it means closure, as if closure is a door that must be locked and never opened again. But closure is not forgetting. Closure is peace. It is saying, this chapter mattered, but it is no longer where I live. It is part of my story, but it is not my whole story. You can always revisit the pages of the past, but you cannot stay there. Moving on means choosing to read from a new page, not because the old one disappears, but because you are ready to write more. Peace is what your heart longs for, not erasure, not denial, but peace. And peace is what moving on gives you. It gives you the ability to remember without bitterness, to reflect without reopening wounds, to look back without being pulled back. That is the power of choosing peace. It transforms the past into wisdom instead of a prison. Some believe that holding on to pain is the only way to prove their love or their loyalty. They think if they let themselves move on, it means they have stopped caring. But the truth is, moving on does not mean you loved less. It means you love yourself enough to stop suffering endlessly. It means you allow yourself to honor what was while still embracing what is. Moving on says, I can cherish the memory and still create new ones. It says, I can love what I lost and still love what is coming. And moving on is not a single step, it is a series of choices. Some days you will feel light, as though you finally set the burden down. Other days you will feel the pull of the past again. That does not mean you have failed. It means you are human. Moving on is not a straight line. It is a dance between remembering and releasing, between looking back and looking forward. But each time you choose peace, you are strengthening the muscles of your soul. You are teaching yourself to live in the present instead of being chained to the past. There is also a power in deciding that peace matters more than answers. Some people never move on because they are waiting to understand, waiting for an apology, waiting for the pieces to make sense. But the truth is, you may never get the closure you think you need. You may never hear the words you long for. You may never understand why. Moving on means deciding that peace is worth more than explanations. It means saying, even if I never know why, I will not let this keep me hostage. That choice is one of the most freeing acts you can ever make. And here is the miracle. When you move on, you discover that joy returns. Slowly at first, like a shy visitor, and then stronger, like an old friend. Laughter finds its way back to you. Hope begins to rise. Dreams you thought were lost begin to stir again. This is not forgetting. This is healing. This is what peace feels like. It makes space for new beginnings without erasing what was. Think of the seasons. Winter does not erase autumn. Spring does not erase winter. Each season remains a part of the cycle. Each one leaves its mark. But the earth moves forward, always renewing, always blooming again. Your soul is no different. Moving on is the spring that follows the winter. The memory of the cold remains, but the warmth comes anyway. The flowers grow anyway. Life renews anyway. There is a strength in choosing peace because it requires you to release what you cannot control. It requires you to unclench your fist from the past and open your hand to the present. It requires you to stop fighting yesterday and start embracing today. That choice does not make you weaker. It makes you freer. It makes you lighter. It makes you whole again. So when you fear moving on, remind yourself you are not letting go of the love, the lesson, the truth. You are only letting go of the pain that keeps you from living. You are only releasing the chains so that you can walk in peace. The past is yours. It always will be, but your life is happening now. And moving on is the way you honor both, by remembering without clinging, by loving without aching, by choosing peace over pain. There comes a moment in every life where standing still feels like a slow kind of dying. The heart knows it, the spirit knows it, even when the mind fights against it. You cannot stay in the same place forever, no matter how safe it seems, no matter how familiar it feels. There comes a time when you must walk forward, not because you are fearless, not because you have it all figured out, but because your soul whispers that you are worth more than staying stuck. Loving yourself enough to walk forward is one of the bravest decisions you will ever make. Too many people believe that love is something you only give to others. They pour themselves out. They bend until they break. They sacrifice every part of themselves for everyone else. But when the time comes to offer that same devotion inward, they falter. They hesitate. They call it selfish. Yet there is nothing selfish about saving your own life. There is nothing selfish about choosing yourself. Loving yourself enough to walk forward is not abandoning anyone. It is refusing to abandon you. The truth is, walking forward requires self-respect. It is an act of declaring, I deserve peace, I deserve growth, I deserve joy. And that declaration is not always met with applause. Some will not understand why you are leaving what they think is good enough. Some will question why you cannot just stay where you are, accept what you've been given, keep quiet, and carry on. But loving yourself enough to walk forward means refusing to shrink yourself for the comfort of others. It means valuing your soul more than their approval. Walking forward is not just about leaving places, people, or circumstances behind. It is about stepping into your own becoming. It is about acknowledging that your story is still being written and that the chapter you are living in is not the final one. It is about embracing the unknown, trusting that life holds more for you than what you've seen. To walk forward is to say, I may not know what waits ahead, but I know I cannot keep standing here. That is self-love in motion, and it will take courage, because forward is uncertain. Forward does not promise a map or a guarantee. Forward is often a road you walk alone at first, carrying only faith and determination. But loving yourself means believing that you are strong enough to take those steps. It means believing that you deserve what lies beyond the fear. It means giving yourself permission to grow even when the growing feels uncomfortable. Think of a seed buried in the soil. If it could speak, perhaps it would say, "This darkness is all I know. This is where I am safe. Why should I break open? Why should I push upward into a world I cannot see?" Yet the seed must break to bloom. It must walk forward into the light. And once it does, it becomes more than it ever imagined it could be. You too must allow yourself to break from what was so that you can rise into what will be. That is how you honor yourself. That is how you love yourself enough to move forward. Too often we confuse comfort with love. We stay in jobs, in relationships, in patterns, simply because they are familiar. We tell ourselves we are safe even while we are suffocating. But comfort without growth is not love. It is a cage. Real love, the kind you give yourself, demands freedom. It demands expansion. It demands that you step beyond the bars of the familiar and walk forward into the vastness of your own potential. There will be voices, inside and out, that try to hold you back. The voice of fear whispering that you will fail. The voice of doubt telling you that you are not enough. The voices of others projecting their own insecurities onto you. But none of those voices can live your life. None of them can walk your path. Loving yourself enough to walk forward means choosing your own voice above all others. It means silencing the noise long enough to hear your own truth. And when you hear it, you follow it, even if no one else understands. Walking forward is also about forgiveness, not just of others, but of yourself. You cannot walk forward if you are chained to regret, if you are shackled by shame. You must forgive yourself for what you didn't know, for the choices you made in survival, for the times you stayed when you should have gone. Forgiveness is how you lighten your load so that you can step freely. It is how you love yourself enough to stop punishing your past and start blessing your future. And the more you walk forward, the more you realize that each step is an act of creation. You are building a life that aligns with who you are becoming. You are writing a story that reflects your truth. You are proving to yourself that you can keep going no matter what tried to stop you. Each step becomes a testimony. I chose me. I chose peace. I chose love. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes walking forward looks like quiet decisions, like saying no when you used to always say yes, like applying for an opportunity that scares you, like leaving the phone unanswered when the past comes calling, like waking up and choosing to hope again. Forward is built in small choices that add up to a life reclaimed. And here is the miracle. You do not have to see the entire path to begin. You only need to love yourself enough to take the next step, then the next, and the next. Before you know it, you look back and realize you are not where you were. You are not who you were. You are stronger, freer, more alive. You carried yourself forward. You loved yourself into a new season. Loving yourself enough to walk forward is how you honor your worth. It is how you refuse to be trapped in what no longer serves you. It is how you claim your right to joy, to healing, to possibility. No one can do it for you. No one else can take those steps. This is your journey, your path, your life, and the greatest act of love you can give yourself is to keep moving. So, my dear friends, remember this. Life will wound you, but it will also teach you. It will break you, but it will also give you the tools to rebuild. Let it hurt, that is your truth. Let it heal, that is your strength. Let it go, that is your freedom. And when you finally do, you will discover that moving on was never about losing. It was always about becoming.